Everyone knows who you are. You're IcySoapy. No one knows who I am. But that's beside the point. But I guess let's just make
What the
things.
f? No one knows who I am. You're crazy.
Hello, IcySoapy. Why don't you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. So outside of my name that no one knows, hashtag IcySoapy, I am the TO currently for Pokin in Tucson, and also super casual streamer
Where is Tucson?
in Arizona.
How do you
It's a
spell
nice desert,
it?
a very nice desert. It's nice and hot. My favorite. Don't ever come here if you don't like the heat, is all I have to say.
Great start.
That's the best intro I can think of. Intros are not my strong suit.
It's okay, man. So, as the TO Tucson, where do you host?
I host in my apartment,
Mm-hmm.
which is a solid like 400 square feet, a little bit more, maybe like probably like 420.
Mm-hmm.
And we host every Wednesday, or I host every Wednesday, I should say, in my small ass apartment, or we somehow managed to get 2 setups and a stream setup to fit in like 400 square feet of space.
That's actually.
But that I think it only happens because our scene is still small.
Mm-hmm.
If we had like, if we kept doing like 7 people in our other place, it'd just get way too crowded or like cramped. Because it's literally we're poverty life in this like local pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. But you have managed to
Because-
host 7 people, right?
Yeah, I think our max was 7 because it was myself, Strawberry, Gav, Azur, Gurin, who was Tajad at the time, Distin, and Evie Blaziken. And I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure that was everyone. I think that was like number 5. Because that was when we did like best of 5 all the way through.
Number 5 local or
Best of 5 local.
okay.
The double LM bracket.
So what made you
I think that
decide
was
to
our first
run
attempt at the double LM as well.
that? Yeah, what made you decide to go best of 5 for the first double limb?
Because I wanted hands-on experience. 'Cause I have no TO experience prior to Pokken. I was really just like a casual competitive player for fighting games. And then outside of like fighting games, my only other competitive like anything was like League of Legends. So
Yeah.
no TO experience. And I needed a good table of time frames that I can use to figure out how long an average best of 5 would go for Tucson. So I was like, F it, we're gonna do all it best of 5 because I have like my place like open pretty much almost all afternoon. 'Cause at the time we are doing it from like 4 o'clock to like midnight. So we had like 8 hours to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, if this is obviously doable to like just to see how long it would take.
Did it take
In
all?
most sets, it only took about 12 to 15 minutes, so it wasn't too bad. I think the
And,
only that made it take friggin' forever was that people were taking their sweet time to get set up. But outside of that, it was surprisingly not as long as I thought it was going to be. I think it only was like 2 hours.
for the whole tournament?
Yeah, for the whole tournament, because it was pretty. There is a very big skill difference in Tucson.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them were just 30s. Or like 31s.
Okay.
But it was very just game time, and I like the fact that people were taking breaks to eat pizza at the time. But that is very pretty far down the line.
Oh, okay.
But outside of that, that was like number 5. But that was one of our better sides. The beginning of the Tucson scene was a struggle and a half, I'll tell you that right now.
So let's go a little before that because what even got you to start TOing?
Alright, so I had moved to Tucson from Georgia for personal reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got here to Arizona, I was pretty much in the middle of looking for a job, and I needed a time kill outside of Melee. So I started looking at Pokken,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I was getting into the Pokken scene, I believe at the time it was literally just Quiet and Gav.
Uh-huh.
And I know Quiet had been hosting alongside Melee and Street Fighter V at a brewery downtown. I went once. I think I played pretty much Melee the entire time. I played Pokken for like an hour. And that was my first experience with Quiet. And he was definitely... I wouldn't say he was like toxic, but he was definitely frustrated that I had no clue what I was doing my first time playing.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened. I started getting more into the scene because even though the first experience wasn't too great, I had been lurking in the Pokken community for a bit. I literally just watched streams. I
Oh.
never said anything and only started talking during when Ruta Fuda had started streaming. So that was like, I think August last year, maybe a little bit after. So I was like talking to them. Ruta ended up getting me really into the scene. So along that point, I saved up. I bought a Wii U for like fucking $300.
Uh-huh.
I spent like 60 on Pokken, and the pad was like another 80.
The pad was
And-
80?
Or not 8, no, the pad's 20, but
Okay.
added up it would be like another, it would be 80 with the game.
Sure.
So all that was happening. I was getting into the Discord stuff. Like I joined a bunch of character Discords. I think Braxton and Septower were probably the two main ones, and then there's kind of like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I was getting super into it. I wanted to go to another local, and found out that we had been banned from the brewery downtown because Melee players were passing out drinks to underage kids.
Nice.
So they ended up being at Quiet's place. So I go to Quiet's place, and I actually end up meeting Gav as well, because I think it was because I forget exactly how it started, but I was in the Brax Discord, and I was asking about AZ, and then someone had pointed me to Gav. Talked to Gav, he told me about Quiet, so I went down because I figured that he would be there too, and I was like, I kind of know Quiet. You seemed alright the first meeting, so I wasn't too worried. I went down there and ended up becoming like this three-way conversation. We played for a little bit. Quiet started getting frustrated and like venting that he didn't want to TO anymore.
Oh, okay.
From at least from how it happened, he was obviously getting mad at the game too. And then what ended up happening after he was like venting about just TOing, he didn't seem like he wanted to TO. I basically just said I'll do it. Like and at the time it sounded like super because he was like, I forget exactly what he said. But he was like, I just don't want to TO. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll just do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's made me sound like a super because like this was like his territory type of deal.
Wait,
I was just like, fine, I'll take it.
but he stopped TOing though.
Yeah, but he wasn't technically fully done. Like he's still hosting Pokken.
Oh. Okay.
So I don't know. It was like a weird scenario. And I think the night ended with Quiet rage quitting because he got the read on me but misspaced it and then lost.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, I'm going to bed. And
Oh.
so I was like, alright, so I packed up with Gav. We, like I said, Quiet was definitely a bit rough around the edges when I first met him, but he's pretty nice now.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, I went with Gav because he offered me a ride home, and we started talking about the scene and just like having myself host it because he had told me about the Zur and the confrontation between him and Quiet and just like how the community relations were, and I was like, all right, I'll take an attempt to fix this. I will TO.
So who
And
is
we can do it all.
Azor?
Azur is another Tucson player who was supposedly prior to me, but it seemed like he only played with Gav because I guess he went to the brewery downtown and Quiet got pretty ragey from what I've heard, and Azur got super uncomfortable and stopped going.
Oh, okay. So he was.
And Gre-
What? So he's playing before you showed up, then, right?
I assume so. I never got the full story from Gav,
Okay.
so I don't really know if he was like an actual player in the community or if that was just like a one-time thing.
Hmm. Okay.
So I don't know if he had like that actual activity. But besides that, that kind of like all just built up and it was like, alright, I'll just do it. Like if he doesn't want to do it, I'll do it. You know, if community members are becoming uncomfortable around quiet,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll give them like a place that will like be like an alternative choice. So I ended up picking Wednesday because I couldn't do weekends at all since I work in dining. I need weekends to make money, and Gav couldn't do weekends because he was preparing for his mission. So I ended up putting it on Wednesday. That way, one, it wouldn't conflict with Quiet.
Yeah.
So if people still wanted to go to Quiet's place, they could. But if they also wanted to come to mine, they could also do that like the day before.
So there was like a split
So
in terms
that
of
ended
the
up
locals.
Yeah, it was like a split because there's just like that bad blood between Azure and Quiet, and because let's see, I forget, like Azure and Gav would talk about their experiences with Quiet to other players, and it would kind of leave like a bad taste in some of their mouths. So like maybe you don't want to go to there type of deal. So mine was just kind of like an alternative for those who weren't like comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, at the time, I didn't think Quiet was that bad. Like I have seen worse amounts of anger and rage from like competitive League of Legends days and from like melee players. So I don't think he was like as bad as Gav or Azure made it seem.
Hmm.
But I definitely think his attitude was a bit of an issue.
Okay.
And so that pretty much all just spawned that local. And it was pretty rough at the start. So the start, it was literally just me and Gav.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we had one monitor and some cheap-ass TV stands. And that was our setup. Was there were two views, one monitor. So we had one person who only looked at the pad and the other person who looked at the monitor. And it kind of just like went on that for like 2 weeks until we finally got. I had bought. Actually, no. So what ended up happening was Gav had finally convinced Azure to come down
Okay.
because Quiet had this time had pretty much just dropped Pokin. So Azure was feeling more comfortable to actually come into my place.
Mm-hmm.
Because Azure didn't want to show up at first because he thought Quiet would be coming down. But once Quiet had decided to take his break, that's when Azure was like, alright, I'll make an attempt to show up.
Okay.
And on that same week, Ghost from Virginia
Oh.
had also been road tripping. So he ended up coming to my place as well. Or we still only had one monitor. So we had like this 4-man round robin.
So.
And so it was,
So it went from what you and Gav to suddenly 4 people with Ghost.
yeah,
Wow.
it's completely based on coincidence with Ghost, honestly. Like, we had no clue he was coming down, or he was even in the area,
Mhm.
until Gav had been, like, talking to him, like, literally the day before.
Wow. Okay.
So I was like, oh, I guess Ghost is here now. And Ghost is pretty chill. Ghost is chill at company.
Hmm.
So, it became us 4. We had, like, a round robin best of 3. Ghost dumpstered everyone. And that
So-
was the local.
So you did
It
a
was-
best of 3 with a round robin, but then when it
Because
came to
we're-
double M, you did best of 5.
It's literally just experimenting. Because I didn't.
Okay.
Because my first local, I'd never fucking hosted anything before.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how long it was gonna take. And we also play like a lot of casuals. Like the round robin was an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
So we had already been playing for like 2 or 3 hours prior to the round robin.
Yeah, I see.
So we ended up doing it like super last minute. So I had to go make a challenge account while they were playing to make like the table. And at the time it was already like super late, like 8 o'clock. And because Ghost had to like drive back to Virginia. Because he was very on his like way back.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to like send it wrong super long because he still has to like make his drive. And Azure, I think he technically could have stayed late, but it didn't really want to be here till midnight. And Gav had missionary stuff, so we did something like really small.
Okay. So it was also time constrained at that point.
Yeah, at that point, so I was like, okay, best of 3 round robin first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of like solidified the fact that I was just gonna stay hosting and TOing. Because I was like, wow, I enjoyed this. This was fun. I want to keep doing it.
Uh-huh.
So that's really where it all started, at least for the TOing stuff. Because I had gone into Melee prior, but never really did anything with the community. I literally just played.
Mm-hmm.
So after my first experience actually attempting to be a TO, I was like, okay, I actually like this. And so it just kind of kept going. And we slowly grew while Quiet was doing like his break. We ended up getting like Tajad, like the very next week right after, like the second local that we did. And so it basically became, so if there's one really good thing about Gav is that he's very easy to talk to and he's super friendly.
Uh-huh.
So he just became like the face of the scene for the most part.
Mm.
So I did like the background work and I like try to find people, and Gav would also like try to help out with people. But he was also like the main reason for a lot of people to stay because he was super friendly and just easy to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So people liked having that personality around. Nazir is also pretty nice. He's pretty heavy on the casual side, but he was pretty good company as well. Then Tajad, he's pretty chill. He's actually semi-motivated right now. He actually has like some drive for the game because it's new. So we had like a good group of people.
Uh-huh.
So we tried best of 5 round robin this time after seeing how best of 3 went.
Mm-hmm.
I think at that point, like, okay, so Quiet's a nice dude, but sometimes he would subtweet about us. And I was like, okay, dude, like, I did not ban Quiet at any point, I will say. Like, he was free to come down whenever he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know, every now and then he just subtweet. It was like, whatever. Because, like, Quiet's a nice dude.
Was there any that you think that might have caused that to happen, or?
Definitely the immediate growth, honestly. Because Quiet, I don't remember how long he was TOing the scene, like for Tucson, but I think I'd been there because I went to Barrio, then Quiet's place. I think that was like a few months of time, and so that time on whatever previous time Quiet had, then all of a sudden I just kind of took over and immediately had people show up after like 3 weeks. 3-4 weeks. I think that definitely took a hit to him.
Oh, okay.
Because Quiet puts in a lot of time. He has the forums, and he was also like trying to host. I think he also TO'd Rewired.
He definitely was involved. Yes.
Yeah. So like they have no progress on the local scene, and just like some random dude who's never so much as TO'd before has been playing the game for like 2 weeks suddenly gets like progress. I can understand why it would suck because you're like because I feel like, wow, I've been doing this for so much longer, and then some random dude with no experience somehow just gets people.
I see.
I think that actually made him realize like the issue with his attitude, or at least played a part in it, because he eventually like posted on Facebook about him like working on his attitude after some weeks, which made me happy because I think Quiet is very valuable to the community.
Not to like throw doubts on it, but what do you think in terms of like what do you consider valuable of him in terms of just community in Tucson?
So at the very start, I also did think he's like just a toxic community member. he definitely got mad playing games.
Mm-hmm.
But when he didn't have a controller, he was a nice dude. Once he picked up the controller, he was toxic. There's just no other way around it.
Mm.
Like he was toxic, and it got pretty bad. I know made Azure uncomfortable. Gav was uncomfortable,
Uh-huh.
and it ended up becoming like a big deal for the Tucson scene
I see.
in general. And it kind of like built up after a while, because during that time we were also trying to get our third week going. It took like a week, or maybe we had like a week that we skipped because no one could make it. But then I think it was around the third local for the scene. Strawberry had shown up.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, I'm trying to remember when Strawberry became. I think it was either third or fourth. I'm talking about them, about the whole quiet situation. Strawberry had shown up. He's like offering his stream setup.
Mm-hmm.
And I had literally just sunk in money into the scene. Like I had 2 monitors. I ended up buying like my own set of LAN adapter stuff. I bought like 8 HDMI cords because we had an issue with Gav's AverMedia, like just bed when we were trying to just get our stream to work.
Oh.
Because I know we ran it on, I attempted to run it on the first 2, but it was literally just video and nothing else. Then we tried to do commentary, and that fell through pretty hard because my computer just couldn't handle it, or at least not his card. So I bought another capture card, tested that out on my computer, and realized I could only record, I couldn't stream.
Mm-hmm.
And so Strawberry like offered his setup when he found out about our scene. So Strawberry comes to our local. He has the setup now. Tajad was a nice dude. He brought like chairs to help out. And we started like forming slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Like we started to form like an actual like legitimate local. So then it became okay. So we're actually having like legitimate success with this local stuff now.
Okay.
And it becomes all right. So now we actually have to look at like community stuff hardcore. So we had to actually have a debate on Quiet's like standing in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't hang out with Quiet, or you haven't been in like certain Discord groups, you don't know about how you can get sometimes, and how it can make people uncomfortable. So Gav had brought it up to me, and we ended up having a debate over it. I think it was between locals 3, I think it was like somewhere in between local 3 and 4, up until like number 6. So we ended up having this conversation like, all right, what do we do about Quiet? Because Quiet had joined the Tucson Discord, even though he said he had no interest in the game anymore.
Mm.
So Gav was a bit worried about what this will have on the scene,
Uh-huh.
because we had now gone to Jod. Strawberry had shown up, so Gav was worried about potential conflict, and that ended up becoming like an issue for a little bit, because it got to the point where we had discussed whether or not we were gonna ban Quiet.
It got to that point?
So
Wait.
it got to that point.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like, and I think that was like also this was like my first, like, this was like a high impact decision. My first like big TO decision, like, because this is a decision that would shape our small community,
Mm-hmm.
because Quiet does have a rap, or at least he had a reputation of being like a toxic player.
Mm-hmm.
Because Gav and Azure would talk about it when other people would ask about Quiet, because they would know who Quiet is, because between the Pokken Arena site and the fact that he's just a community member, like a big one, like he's a pillar,
Yeah.
almost. So they would talk about their experience with Quiet, and they would ask me about it, and it basically was like, it got to the point where some people were 50-50, others were like, I don't know about this type of deal.
Mm.
For the most part, I was fine with Quiet coming. I didn't see an issue, because when I took over the scene, I was like, all right, this is gonna be like a rebirth like everyone's fresh slate type of deal. So I was fine with giving Quiet like a second chance. Then Strawberry had actually met Quiet before, and he thought Quiet was alright. So he was fine with Quiet coming around. Gav wanted Quiet banned.
I see.
And I can understand why. Gav has been around Quiet the most, and also was the one telling him, like, you need to clean up your attitude, and getting the responses from Quiet saying, basically being like, no, it's my place type of deal. Like, he can do what he wants. So that just put Gav over the edge, and Gav was like, I want him banned.
I see.
And Azir was also not comfortable, because at this point, Azir only has, like, that one local experience with Quiet where Quiet had, like, raged.
So there's this.
So
So given the attitudes, besides you, of course, it sounds like Strawberry was okay with it. Was there a reason behind that?
He had only met Quiet once, from what I understand, for, like, it didn't seem like a very long period of time. Or at least it seemed like it was a while ago, to where maybe he doesn't remember the full thing. Because when he brought him up, he couldn't even really remember him that much.
Okay.
He just said that he taught him Weavile a little bit, and that was it. So Strawberry was pretty much indifferent. So it was kind of like Strawberry was in the middle, Distant and Eevee Blaziken didn't know who Quiet was at all.
Yeah.
Because Distant is Street Fighter V and Injustice 2. So for the most part, I think he just stuck to that, never actually looked at the poking community. And Eevee Blaziken is like a 12-year-old kid, so he has no clue who Quiet is.
Okay.
So at that point, it basically became Self, Strawberry, Azir, Gav, and then Tajad were kind of like the main 5 who I had talked about a little bit. So for the most part, Tajad, Strawberry were in like the 50-50, like they weren't gonna really say their piece, like they didn't have any experience with Quiet to really say much on it. Like Tajad had never met Quiet, so he didn't really have like any reason to say yes or no.
Yeah.
Strawberry only had that one experience, and he didn't really say much about it, so wasn't really yes or no from him. Guy was a definite no, just from
Past experiences.
Yeah, past experience. And Azir was like, I'm gonna say he was like 75% no. Like a part of him definitely seemed like he was willing to give some type of shot. So he wasn't like a full no. And then I was like the only person saying yes, like Quiet can show up. Like I was the only definitive yes, he can come.
Okay.
So it became a situation where, alright, like I'm not going to ban him solely off one person's opinion. So we ended up having to talk about, okay, how do we handle the situation? So I was like, if Quiet ever decides like he wants to fully come back into the community, which he obviously eventually he did, I was like, he gets like a fair shot just like anyone else would. So I was like, I'm not going to tell Quiet about the potential banning of him, because if he comes in and he already knows he's already under like heavy watch, then he's obviously going to change how he acts.
Not to.
So I decided, you know what?
Yeah, I just want to.
So I made like a really risky play.
I do want to bring up that wouldn't it look obvious that that's what you guys were gonna do when he was around, or were you just trying to play it cool?
I don't know. Because I never brought it up to Quiet, so I don't understand. I wouldn't know what he was thinking. I definitely know for a fact that he knew that he made the other two uncomfortable to quite a degree, but I don't think he ever knew that he was up to being banned.
Okay.
And I decided not to tell him just because I wanted to see, like, because one, he had already been posting like he was working on his attitude, so I wanted to see like how he would act just coming by himself without having to worry about anything else outside of what he already knew.
Okay.
And I was like, I told Gav, you know, I understand that you and Azir like are not completely comfortable with this. If he does do anything out of line, like I would kick him out and I would ban him. But I wasn't going to ban him without him actually giving me a reason to.
Okay.
Because like I said, like he's a nice guy when he doesn't have like the controller. But once he picks up the controller and plays for a little bit, he can definitely get ragey, at least at the time. So they eventually agreed to it, seeing as Gav was going to be leaving in a month anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I already do a large portion of the work for the community, so I already had like I would say I have like a bit more say
Yeah, that's fair.
in it, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it comes down to it, I keep all of our VODs on an external hard drive. Let's see, I put all the money into like the TVs and the setup, and just like we use my place. I made the VODs channel on YouTube. I made the Excel sheet keeping track of all of it. I make the brackets. So I think the only two things I didn't do. Well, okay, so at the time Gav had made the Twitch channel, but now it's technically mine. And then Strawberry donates his stream setup. So outside of that, I pretty much do next to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it just gave me like much more say. If I was gonna be doing most of the work, then obviously like, I'm just gonna pull a little bit of power. And I was like, it's just not fair, honestly, to ban someone when you do a clean slate type of deal.
Uh-huh.
Like, it should not be like everyone gets a clean slate, but this one person.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we decided. So I just pretty much decided we're gonna let Quiet come.
Mm-hmm.
So Quiet comes, and it goes really well. I was really happy with how it turned out. You can definitely tell he was holding back a bit, but he was also making an effort to be a positive community member,
Mm-hmm.
which I really appreciated.
That's
Because the dude even like brought food to the local, because it was like gonna be like Gav's last one potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So he went all out to like, I don't know entirely sure why. I assumed to help fix relations. So he did all of that. He was very pleasant to be around. He's actually really nice. And I remember Azure Gav had talked to me after local and be like, wow, that went actually surprisingly well. I was like, you guys worry too much. Like, he was posting about him fixing his attitude, so obviously he was doing something. And the fact that he waited a while too until he was like confident that he had changed a bit, obviously showed that he was putting in work to like change himself.
Mm-hmm.
All that happened, and then we had some issues later on between how we were viewed as a community, which came up after that Quiet had come back, because there was a bit of assault from Gav, because we never got like any attention as a scene. It was literally like, it wasn't my goal to be like, okay, we're gonna host on Wednesdays and then compete with HBA or some shit.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty much, I just want to host a local, I want a scene here.
Yeah.
And whoever showed up type of deal. And Gav was still harboring like a bit of negative feelings to Quiet. So when the stream was happening and a bunch of people were like, oh my god, Tucson still has a scene? Like, it still exists? Like, is that Quiet himself type of deal?
Yeah.
It honestly bothered Gav more than it did me.
But
Because no one knew that I was TOing for the most part out of people in the Brax Discord. And I don't know why it got on Gav's nerves so much. I guess just past relations with Quiet. But he was super annoyed with just like how, I don't even remember how he put it, but it was like how much more attention we got once Quiet had shown up.
mm,
And just like, because it was like, so outside of Tucson, Quiet's pretty well liked, honestly. Like, a bunch of people are super happy to have Quiet back, and I understand. Like, the dude is experienced in fighting games. He's definitely a very useful member of the community. But inside Tucson, he still specifically had like that negative reputation. So there's like this weird 50-50 where like people inside Tucson, or at least some of them were like annoyed that we only got any type of respect once Quiet had shown back up. And I was like, I personally didn't care. I was like, whatever. They're here now. Well, they can chill. So that became an issue for a bit. And now we are here. To where, like, bygones are now bygones. You know, I'd say a lot of the negative feelings have dissipated.
Okay, that's certainly good.
Like, yep. It's actually pretty nice, too. I'd say right now, though, we've had, like, a dip in activity with summer coming to an end. It's very hard for the Tucson scene to all get together. Since I can't do anything on weekends, Quiet is primarily weekends. Strawberry and Dartscale are both military, so their schedule is changing all the time.
Oh, okay.
Tajad and Azur are both fresh out of high school looking into colleges, so they're busy. Diston and Cheyenne's guy are both parents.
Okay.
Shy's taking care of a baby. Diston's much more interested in Injustice 2 and Street Fighter. Then Brennan lost interest, so he never ended up showing up. And then it's just kind of like whoever is chilling on the Facebook page just isn't willing to come to anything.
Okay.
But that's fine. You know, like, I'm not going to show up to people. I'm not going to force people to show up to Tucson stuff. But in the meantime, I have found other ways to grow the scene, or I used to try and help out outside of Tucson. Like, Phoenix is now making a reappearance. I think about a week ago now. Phoenix finally had like their first local at the at Cyberzone, an internet cafe, where this dude named Dio had messaged me about the activity in Tucson. And so I pretty much had to tell him, like, I am the only TO, active TO currently. Like, the only other thing that was happening at the time was Rats, which is like a monthly in Phoenix, or at least I'm pretty sure it was called Rats, I don't remember. But all I know is that Poe got removed pretty quick because only 3 people showed up. And one of them was like Quiet back when he was still playing.
Okay.
So they just like ended up removing it. But then Dio just like randomly showed up, and then right about the same time Quiet had come back into the scene. So he was like, all right, what are the locals? I was like, it's literally just mine on Wednesday. Because Dio and Phoenix, he wants to help combine the scenes into like one, because we're only like an hour and a half apart from each other between both the scenes. So he didn't want to put a local on the same day as a Tucson one, because he wants the Tucson people to go up to Phoenix and the Phoenix people to go down to Tucson.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is tough to do because a lot of people don't like to make those type of drives. And Arizona, like, it's not like Georgia where people are willing to make like that 2-hour trek. But in AZ, a lot of people just don't want to drive more than 15 minutes.
Okay.
So now I'm trying my best to help him out with that. He seems to be doing all right so far. Like, he had 4 people his first local, so I'm trying to be there for that to help him out. I'm trying to keep the scene going. I still host every Wednesday. And I only really cancel unless like people are just like, we can't show up. And let's see, outside of that,
Actually,
it's mostly just saving up now for Switch setups for when DX drops. Because it's like 300 for a Switch currently. Then I think the DX version is like $50. 40, 50, somewhere in that range.
it is currently 44 on, and it's because it's on sale.
Okay. So yeah, so it becomes saving up for that, and just like keeping who we can active. And right now it's really just myself, Strawberry, Quiet, and then Gurren back and forth. He doesn't really have means of transportation right now. And then everyone else is kind of like they're around, but not like super active.
Okay.
And that's just the general background story of Tucson. So unless you want me to answer any questions about myself prior to Pokin, or just any questions about the scene that I didn't get to, feel free to ask.
I would like to ask about like just general how the people of Tucson are, because you do talk about. Well, we all know that Gav is basically on
Okay.
this mission right now, so he won't be around for a while.
Yeah.
But what about the
So
what about the others besides basically school,
I gotta be
military?
honest, you completely went full robot there,
Did
but
I
I
go full
think I
robot?
got what you said.
Okay.
Yeah, you're like full robot. So unless you want to type that out real quick.
Let me go. Let me go. Actually, just reset this, and hopefully it'll be better. Give me a moment. All right. So, yeah, the other players in the local, because there has been. You do talk a lot about what Tucson has led up to, and the fact that there is still a relatively, albeit basically non-existent scene in Phoenix right now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's literally, from what I understand about Phoenix, it's only like 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's Dio, and I don't know the names of the other 3 off the top of my head, but it's currently just 4 people.
Uh-huh.
I know one dude is like busy with personal life. I don't know who the other 3 are. Because they're not the same 3 from like in the West Coast server. So I don't know who they are, honestly.
Mhm.
So I can't really say much about them. I know outside of that, Dio is primarily looking just to be a TO, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And then I can really only talk about players in Tucson.
Yeah, so talk to me
Like,
more
I'll
about two
really
players in
say, like,
Tucson, because it just sounds mostly that they're just busy with either school life, raising the family, or military. Was it right? You talked about how some of them are going to the military. You say?
oh yeah, Strawberry and Roscoe are both already military. And
Mhm.
because of all this, it makes our scene like a lot of our players are much more casual because they have so much personal stuff going on, so it makes our scene pretty inconsistent.
Okay.
I think it's pretty much myself, Quiet, who play the most, and then it'd be like Strawberry and Gurin,
Okay.
who play if they can, and everyone else just doesn't practice and really only plays once they come here.
I see. So, let me think about this. Because even now, after the attention given to Tucson, there's only possibly 3 people, maybe 4, that people will recognize if they pay attention to the Tucson scene, right? That would be Quiet, being the most high profile. Gav has had some attention for it some time. You're known as the TO, and for various reasons, Strawberry is also pretty well known relative to everyone else in Tucson, right?
I would agree with that.
Okay.
So Quiet's definitely the most known, just between all the work that he's done prior.
Mm-hmm.
I think Gav is pretty popular because of the Brack score.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think Strawberry might be more known than I am because of his commentary.
Uh-huh.
Like, was like a pretty big hit for the people that stayed.
Okay.
And honestly, no one ever knows that I'm like TOing.
Oh.
Like, it took Quiet to show up and then bring everyone in to make people realize, wait, this dude has been TOing.
Do you think that there was something you could have done, or you just feel like it wasn't worth the effort?
I made an attempt. Me and Gab made an attempt to like let people know that I was TOing, but we didn't really participate in some of the more main discords. Like, we don't use the Reddit one,
Mm-hmm.
and we weren't pretty like, we posted a little bit in West Coast, but we did like twice and realized we're not active enough in that server. And so we primarily used the Brax Discord. And I forget one of there. It might have been West Coast still.
Mm.
So we made an attempt, and we kind of slowly realized that, or at least I realized, like, I don't really care about how many views we got on our stream, honestly.
But
Like for the most part, we
mhm.
pull a decent amount of viewers for like Pokken standards. So it wasn't even like an issue, honestly. Like we pretty much just cared about keeping players
like in the scene active, more so than stream numbers.
That makes sense.
Like I personally don't care that we are in the same time slot as HBA, honestly.
Mhm.
Like I know Quiet is like we shouldn't be hosting at the same time as HBA, but honestly, I'm more on the side of like I just don't care, honestly.
Well,
Like I care much. Like right now, my goal is to keep Tucson like alive and to help out with Phoenix.
so
And
is
don't get me wrong, I understand why
Mhm.
Quiet would want us to move out of the same time slot as HBA. Because a lot more people are going to be watching HBA anyways compared to our stuff.
Yeah.
Because HBA has a much higher skill cap than our scene does.
Mhm.
And they're much more experienced overall.
Sure.
But at the same time, if our best meetup time is like Wednesdays around the same time, and that's what I'm going to do.
So is the best meetup time Wednesday?
It's like 5. We start up at like 5:30,
Uh-huh.
and usually do a bracket somewhere between 6 to 7 is
My-
when we start up somewhere in that time zone.
My main
So
question
usually HBA is going on,
Yeah, but my
and then
my question, Soapy, was that is Wednesday at 5 the best time for the majority of the people who will show up?
currently yes,
Okay.
because see, I'm trying to remember because I know I can't do weekends. Strawberry is already flexing so much in general. You can't really give him like a specific day.
Mm-hmm.
Dart Scale can only do like weekdays for the most part,
Okay.
or it's like Tuesday, Wednesday range is the most likely for him.
Mm-hmm.
Then Gurren and Azure are both Wednesdays as well, because they use their weekends for other stuff.
Yeah.
So right now Wednesday is really just our best option. I could move it earlier, as long as I don't get scheduled to work that time, which I haven't been recently. So moving it earlier is a possibility,
Okay.
but it's also how many people could show up earlier. So at this point in time, like we're still sticking to Wednesday, but it's definitely something that I'm willing to change, depending on like how it would be changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Quiet wants to try to move us to Thursday, but I'm currently working Thursday
Okay.
myself, and I don't know about the others, so I have to do like, I don't know, maybe like a Google Doc between everyone that's like, okay, these are my days type of deal.
Yeah, just organize it up a bit and make sure that we know what time is best.
Yeah, to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time, Wednesday was just like our best option between myself, Gav, Azure, and Gurren. But if it's mostly just gonna be myself, Strawberry, Quiet, and Gurren, then like two of those players are obviously swapped from who are the most consistent. So it's at least a good idea to just make an attempt to see what everyone's schedule is like.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, my goal is the community, not stream viewers. Honestly, like I like having a stream, like we can pull in viewers, but at the end of the day, if I had to choose between how many people can consistently show up, and if between that or competing with HBA, I would pick. If we got more people during the same time as when HBA would be going on, I would just compete with HBA.
But what if having a more known stream helped you find players in Arizona?
Honestly, it's already, so that's a weird situation for Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Like we haven't really been having trouble finding players, even though our stream is like unpopular.
What do you-
Like
Go on.
we still find players relatively, I'm not gonna say easily, but we still find players from time to time already. So it's like, how much would the stream actually help that? I would say it probably help a little bit, but it's not like we're also struggling to find players either.
Okay.
Like we find people who are interested. It's just mostly people who are willing to commit to the drive.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But I'd say they'd probably be helpful, honestly, straight up. But how helpful, I could not say.
I see. So, you did point out that it's just people who are willing to make the drive, right? Are there potentially people who are currently in other scenes and just aren't aware there's a Pokken scene that might be interested in coming over? Have you appealed out to other communities for this?
I have gone to like, so Arizona has its like, so communities have their sub kind of like, so there's one main page for fighting games,
Yeah.
and then each game has like their own individual pages
Mm-hmm.
that they use. And I have posted on the main page before, but a lot of people just aren't interested
Okay.
because Pokken is on the Wii U.
Mm-hmm. The console is
And the
definitely a
Wii U-
detriment.
So it hurt a lot of possibly potentials. I don't think we'll see any more show up until DX drops when the game is on like a good system.
Have you tried gauging interest for DX then?
A little bit. Like I've posted about it and I've gotten like a few likes. I've gotten a few people being like, is this local like open? And I'm like, yeah, it's completely public. Like you can come every week. Like it's not like restricted. But that's usually where it stops. Like they'll say, oh, I want to come down, and I'll like make like the group messages on like Discord. I'll like message them on Facebook for those who aren't on the Discord, or I'll text them or something, and then they just don't show.
Okay. I see.
So it's a very kind of like, all right, it looks like a lot of people's interest won't really get them to go until DX drops.
Mm-hmm. That
Because
makes sense.
Tucson has a scene, a lot of players just pick their one game and then stick with it. Like the Melee players only play Melee. The Project M players stick with Project M. And then some of the Street Fighter and Guilty Gear players jump between games. But for the most part, it seems like a lot of players just pick their one, and that's like their main goal, or like their main focus.
Okay.
Because we are a college town, so a lot of time gets eaten up for a lot of the players here. Between like school and stuff.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it becomes like a situation with a lot of variables.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll be honest, I think my scene is a very tough scene to TO. But I am glad that I still TO it.
I see.
Even if it's difficult.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, like I'm going to do what I can to get more players and to make a better scene in general. Like, I've had to sit down and think, do I want to primarily be a player or do I want to primarily be a TO?
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to go about each one? So I've sat on it. I think I've ultimately decided, or at least right now, it's much more heavily in favor of just being a TO. Like, I still have goals as a player, but it's not to be like in the top 10 in the world. It's mostly get to myself to a respectable point
Okay.
to where I'm like a player people will respect when they play me. I'll be like mid to high tier would probably be my goal, but for the most part, I think TOing and stuff and like hosting is where I'm putting my focus now.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so I've been trying to make plans around that. So, because like I said, like a big issue for a lot of players is that Pokken is still on the Wii U,
Yeah.
and that we're waiting on the port.
Mm-hmm.
So once the port drops, I'm probably going to make another attempt at reaching out to other fighting game communities and seeing if any community would be willing to like share a venue with us.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then, on the flip side
Because-
of it, so you're going to reach out to these other players, but have you considered also reaching out to other communities just to be a part of their community as well, or are you going to stick solely to Pokken?
I've actually been thinking, so I have Guilty Gear currently,
Mhm.
and I've been enjoying that. I'll probably try to play Guilty Gear a little bit alongside of playing Pokken,
Okay.
but I don't know what the current So, fighting game venues are weird in Tucson. A lot of games jump from venue to venue. Like Melee is usually getting banned from a venue most of the time,
Uh huh.
so they're jumping. I know for the most part, I think it's really just quiet stuff on Thursdays, like the consistent, like FGC stuff, along with a Melee local at the university. So if I were to reach out to these other communities, it would have to be handled delicately in a way where it's like I would enjoy being part of others fighting game communities. I think it would help or like
Hmm.
relations because I definitely want to put some time onto Guilty Gear.
Okay. You
So I think
it just sounds to me like it's still on the back burner for you though, at this
yeah,
point.
it's definitely something that I don't think we'll see results until we get closer till September.
Okay.
Honestly,
So given the fact that you're still talking to this one Dio guy in Phoenix and maintaining the regulars, like what is basically like first priority right now for you? Like, do you have like a general?
priority
Yeah, like
right now.
the first thing you need to make sure you have to do like right now.
Honestly, it would be just holding on to the people that we have now,
Mm-hmm.
because because right now, like we know, the Quiet Strawberry, Gurren to play, and that Azure and them will come when they have the time.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we can hold on to the community and like keep what I can alive until like we figure something out.
Well, what do you mean
'Cause
by
right,
what do you mean by figure something out though?
they're just like trying to find a way to get more players interested once DX starts coming around. Because honestly, like for from what I see from my scene, a lot of players who have played Pokken before are now coming back because they see DX is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of have like they're reignited, but the players who haven't played Pokken before are not interested until like DX comes around.
Mm-hmm.
And so because like if I try to host now, how many people would actually try to play the game at
Yeah.
a venue?
That's
Because
true.
I remember like the one time I did go, I think it's the only person to touch Pokken in the entire venue next to Quiet.
Hmm.
So it's like already knowing that it's not many people are gonna care about the Wii U anyways. It's just it's a hard thing to play around because you're like, all right, I want to try and get people into the game prior to DX, but at the same time, there's not many people that are going to be interested in playing there because many people who play fighting games here already have their own setup so they can practice on their free time,
Mm-hmm.
and not many want to only play at locals. Like a lot of people, like I know Guilty Gear players, like they play on their free time.
That's right.
Like they practice little lab and stuff, but no one wants to come to like Pokken, only play it there, and never have a chance to lab or practice. Because then you don't get like you get like next to no growth
Mm-hmm.
as like a player at that point. Especially if you only have like 2 setups and a bunch of people come, then everyone's gonna have like cold hands outside of the people who already own their own versions.
I see.
So it becomes like it just becomes a waiting game, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And just like making a big push once DX drops. And
Okay.
trying to make like a push for even if you don't get a venue, I'll still host.
Mm-hmm.
And just like trying to find a way to like I think hosting alongside other games would probably be one of the more helpful things to happen. Also just keeping community relations
Yep.
between individual games healthy. 'Cause I know a lot of people in the FGC community here are pretty much against Smash Bros. or at least Melee in particular. And I
Okay.
wouldn't be lying if I wasn't a little bit against them as well, just
Even
because
though
of all
you...
the venue issues.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it seems like Melee players also leave their trash around a lot more.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like, come on. Like, don't be doing that shit. Like, clean up after yourself, use the fucking menu.
Yeah.
So that becomes like just a big waiting game. So it's pretty much okay. I have August and like let's see how many weeks? Like 2 weeks in July. So roughly like 6 weeks, and then whatever time in September. I think it's like late September or mid September for Pokken to like figure out a plan, because not only is it an issue of trying to get community relations,
Mm-hmm.
it's also finding the place that hasn't already had trouble before with other communities, or just like a place that'd be willing, and also means of transportation for certain players. Like I personally, even though I'm a TO, I don't have means of transporting all my setups. Like I have on like my Wii U, I can technically have a setup for like Pokken, Smash 4. My PS3 can be used for Persona 4, like Climax, and then like my PS4 can be used for Guilty Gear Rev 2,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have like the multiple monitors. So it's like I have setups, but no way of transporting them. So if I was to host in the venue, I need to find like either someone who'd be willing to work as a co-host, or like a different TO from a scene who'd be willing to help me transport setups, or just like another community member.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a lot of stuff that needs to get like ironed out before just making a stupid jump that I don't even know I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I make a jump now before figuring out everything else, then it's just gonna fall flat. Like,
Yeah.
it's just gonna fall flat on its ass, and it's not gonna get anywhere. Because a lot of people, especially in smaller communities, definitely Pokken can do that right now. They're like, I want to do this, and they immediately rush it, or they don't do jack shit.
You sound like me.
Yeah, so it's like, you need to be willing to take your time and think things through. Like, you don't need to have a project finished immediately, but you also have to be willing to work on it at a decent pace.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I have like so much, I still have, like, I'll say like roughly 2 months to kind of like figure things out. I don't need to have it all figured out right away. I can still like, or I have like time to play with for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, wish the best of you. Wish the best of luck for you when you're playing around with this sort of thing, because
Oh yeah, 'cause
yeah, mostly
also, like,
primarily with like how small your scene is, because I know how hard it is to maintain a scene of that size.
I'm sure you do, dude. NorCal has seen better days, it seems like.
We've seen better days, but we're all still chill and all nice with each other, so that's still good news.
Yeah. Oh, like, honestly, when the scene's like this slow, either just like I find just goals that I can do for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly,
Makes sense.
because I think so far, just like the experience with the scene in general, I honestly would like to TO something bigger than locals, even like just a small regional. Maybe one day a major. I like to TO that type of stuff.
If
Or, like, TO
Arizona gets
multiple
anything like that.
games, and like kind of like branch out there.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people say like they hate TOing, and I can understand why. You know, you don't get the
Who could possibly hate TOing
like,
though?
well,
No one hates TOing.
I think there's this dude. I think he's a furry. He has like a Dragonite icon. I think he goes by Scads. I think you're
Soapy,
really
no!
TOing, like,
You
all
can't
the
do this,
time.
man. You can't do this. You can't do this to my boy.
Dude, Scats knows. I love my boy Scats. We're homies. Come on. I bought him Tabletop Simulator.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But no. I understand though why a lot of people don't like TOing. Like, it's definitely stressful, and especially like if you're in a sketch situation where you're like, a high level player
Mhm.
and you're also trying to TO like win it brawl,
Yeah.
that shit is a lot to do. Like almost too much, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also see why some like just casual players don't want to TO because if you're playing casually, you're really just there to play. You don't want to put in that type of stuff.
Yep.
And then the competitive players want to put in names for themselves, and you don't really get a name for TOing, right? You're kind of like just a dude behind the curtains.
Unless you do something
You know, you don't
massive
get
in
like
terms of TOing, but yeah, pretty much.
yeah, like you're the dude behind the curtains. You're not gonna be like the top like melee players. Not gonna be like Justin Wong or Armada, fucking
Mhm.
Zero,
Yeah.
Punk. You know, you're not gonna have like that giant ass spotlight. Like, oh my god, look at this fucking dude.
Unless
Look at
you're
him right there. He's so good. He's so cool.
unless you're Jungle Guy.
Yeah, like unless you're like, honestly, like, I'm trying to think of, like,
Jabali, of course.
yeah, Jabali. I think it's Bear TO PG Bear. think he's
I'm
a
going to be
TO.
honest, I
I'm pretty
really
sure he's
don't
a TO.
know.
Yeah, because like even then, like when you think of some of the more well-named TOs, you still have to like think about it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know Jabali is like I think probably the most well-known, or at least
Probably,
in
it's
terms
probably
of
Mr.
Smash.
Wiz. I could be wrong.
Or Mr. Wiz too. Actually, you know, probably Mr. Wiz, and I would say Jabali only for like the Smash series.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Wiz, Jabali, I think pretty sure it's Bear. And I honestly don't know any of the other big name TOs for other fighter games.
Hmm.
Just because I don't have like the experience in that type of stuff yet.
Okay.
But it's like even then, like I can name other top players in fighting games, I just can't name TOs. So I think it kind of shows, you know, if people want to be in the spotlight, you either need to be like a founding father of the scene of TOs,
Mm-hmm.
or you gotta make a name as a player for the most part. And people, at least in the Pokemon community, I can definitely see the Melee community as well, along with a little bit of Smash 4. People want a name for themselves when they play competitively,
Oh yeah,
or
definitely.
like if they're in a competitive scene. And it pretty much just goes to them becoming competitive players and trying to make a name for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I should not every player is like that. Like a lot of them just play to be competitive, but there are like the few people who do want a name for themselves,
Yeah.
and they just try to do it solely through playing. Because at the end of the day, you know, I think people kind of like they see TO and they kind of just like, you know, it doesn't have like
That's
the same way of
administrative
being,
work. I don't get to
yeah,
have
straight
fun.
up work. Yeah, straight up work, and you don't get that like whole top 5 in the world
No, nothing
like
that.
status, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it ends up becoming that type of stuff. But honestly, I find it enjoyable
Mm-hmm. That's good.
and it's definitely worked out, at least in my favor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely would say I've become much more known after TOing for a bit. Surprisingly,
Mm-hmm.
definitely like hang out with some pretty cool people now. But I do enjoy the work. I like setting up brackets a lot, actually. I like making the Excel spreads of like, just like everyone's performances, and just like
I want
being-
a quick
or just,
question. Do you talk about these
type of
Excel
work.
sheets because you thought of them or because Fumu wanted them?
I made them before
Ah,
Fumu
okay.
stuff.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So what ended up happening was like we knew Fumu stuff existed,
Yeah.
but they didn't know we existed.
Mm-hmm.
So I just made my own, and it just had the results on it and all that. So I was like, "Fuck, it, I'll make my own."
Yeah.
And I kind of just used it as like a backup in case our brackets got deleted offline,
Mm-hmm.
or in case like results went missing and we'd have it somewhere. Or if you just like wanted to see numbers and stuff, it was there.
Okay.
And
That
so
makes
that was pretty much our Excel sheet. And then Fumo did eventually make one for us once he saw us quiet on stream. He was like, "Oh, these guys already have brackets before." And then he like sent me one. And then like almost immediately after, the stream had ended for like TSP number 6.
No, that's very prompt of him.
And so, you know, shouts to Fuma.
Shout out to Fumu, indeed.
Yeah, but honestly, at the end of the day, I do enjoy TLN quite a bit. I definitely have been on I want to try and branch out more as a TO. Whether it's-
Mhm.
I would like to TO like bigger stuff in Pokken or other games. or even both, honestly. Granted, that's a very hard, like, I don't know what you want to call it, like a field to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, like, I'll do it just because I enjoy it, honestly. I know a lot of people who don't enjoy TOing and just do it anyways, so it's like, if, maybe they'll, like, pass it on to me or some shit. If they're like, well, if this guy wants to do it, by all means, take it. Just have it. Just no sweat off my back. So, we'll see how that turns out. It's like, I guess you can even say it's like my current goal for the community is become a much more active TO in terms of just like locals and like regionals,
Yeah.
and then maybe somewhere far down the line, I TO a major. But that would be like years down the line. I doubt that would be anywhere in the next year or two. I'd probably be like somewhere in the 3 to 5 range.
Okay.
Yeah, really just does it for everything on the Tucson scene though. Our scene's just hella small, but we have heart. Like at the end of the day, I know the players. We don't give a shit if people know us or not. We
Uh-huh.
don't care for the worst fucking region to exist. We still just play to play.